Since Spacies.
G'day invaders, welcome to Since Spacies. For today's episode on the channel, I'd like to take a look at something different. Now, a couple of you guys that look at my channel on a regular basis would know that once upon a time I used to write for a couple of video game magazines here in Australia. One was Hyper Magazine, which is still running today in 2018. And the other one is not so fortunate. It was a magazine called Megazone magazine, and I'm holding the oldest copy that I have in my collection right here. It started off life though not as as Megazone magazine. It was Megacomp, and when I was in high school, I actually was successful in getting an article published in Megacomp. Now, unfortunately, I don't have an an issue of Megacomp magazine, which is a real shame. But a really cool story about having that published was I had a school teacher that was really hard on me when I was at school, and he would say stuff like, "Mr. Costelloe, you'll never amount to anything," and you know that's really what you don't want in school, is it? Teachers that are putting you down and giving you a hard time, no motivation whatsoever. But a week or so later, I got my article published. It was the history of Sega and also a Wonder Boy 1 review on Master System. And I shoved it into his face and I said, "Never amount to anything, hey, what's this?" And he had to eat humble pie, and he took back his words and he said, "Maybe there's hope for you after all." So that's been something that I had in my past, and I'll be able to take that with me. But anyway, moving along with this series of look backs at the magazines, I want to take a look back at Megazone magazine for a couple of reasons. When you go online on Twitter, you see a lot of people talk about computer video game magazine. They talk about EGM, Mean Machines, and how good and cool those magazines were. Die Hard magazine's another one that comes to mind. GamePro. There's a lot of really cool overseas magazines, and I bought these magazines by the box load. It was only until I had to move from a split with a former girlfriend years ago that I had to throw them out. And these magazines are cool, but we never hear anyone talk about Australian games magazines. And these magazines, they, for me anyway at least, were just about as every bit a part of my gaming background as any of these other computer game magazines. And I'm sure there's a few Australian old gamers like myself that can say the same. So my job here is to let you guys know about some of this. Not so much all the magazines that I wrote for and the issues that I had articles in them, but just the magazine and the history itself. So Megazone magazine, like I said, started off life as Megacomp magazine. It got bought out by Sega, or Aussie Soft as it was known just then here in Australia, and they turned it into, I guess, a kind of like a marketing tool for them. It was an in-house magazine that they could use to push all their latest games. So we've got, I'm going to put, I'll try and squeeze here the graphics of all these articles as I talk about them, and I'll try and go through them as quickly as I can. But you got the cover, Larry's back. So this is back in an era when Leisure Suit Larry and his shenanigans wouldn't be a big thing. It wasn't an outcry to have this on the cover of a magazine, and I guess the majority of the public wouldn't know what Leisure Suit Larry was. Pervert, really. But we dig right in. So this is November 91. It dates just to when I was about to start working there, actually. So at this point in time, I was not working for the Megazone magazine with Sega. So straight away I can see that they've got an article here about Hedgehog Crazy. Now this was just a few months after Sonic the Hedgehog was a major success, and we've got here an article about how there's a Japanese bus with Sonic logos all over it. I would love that artwork on my car, I tell you. And there's also another article here about PC video board brings your screen to life. The Super Video Windows board allows you to display real life video on screen at under $2,000. $2,000 back in 1991. is probably the equivalent of around about 3.5 now, I'd say, probably more. That's an insane amount of money just to get some, what's that, Don Burke's backyard it looks like there. That's insane. And you've also got an article here about how the Jaguar was to take over the Panther. I'm kind of impressed that these guys were onto that back then, that they were reporting on the ongoings of the Atari brand. But this is at the end, towards the end of when Atari was starting to go down the tube a little bit. And we've also got an article here about Atari portables, a laptop. It's got an LCD screen. 1991, that's impressive actually, I'll give them that. You can have a choice of 1 meg or 4 meg of RAM. Whoa. With standard internal 2.5 inch 20 megabyte hard drive. that's insane. You guys got no idea how small that is. There's a lot of Mega Drive games I think they've actually got more memory than that has. You can expand it, you can expand it up to 60 or 100 megs by the end of 1991. Looking forward to that, guys. So one of the cool things about this issue is that they actually had an interview with the creator of Leisure Suit Larry, yeah, I don't know if he was responsible for the later Leisure Suit games that came out on the Xbox 360, which were an absolute shambles of a game. It was just not worth looking at all. You also had articles on the Rocketeer. There's a franchise that never took off. This was a huge movie back when I was starting at Sega. The Rocketeer. I never hear anyone talk about it at all. It was just like a flash in the pan, and yeah, no one talks about the Rocketeer. It's just I don't know. It's got a really cool goth punk, I should say, steampunk sort of look to it. I don't know, maybe a cartoon rather than live action would work in 2018. Actually, I don't think that it would be too far a stretch to bring that back. I reckon it might have legs. There's an ad in here for The Simpsons versus the Space Mutants. Probably one of the biggest load of crap games I can ever recall playing. I hated it with a passion. You got Atari Lynx reviews here, Ninja Gaiden, and also Mickey Mouse on the Game Gear. There's an article in here about Laser Fight. Now this is one of the very first, I love what she's wearing. This is one of the first sort of Laser Fight games where you get dressed up in outfits and try to shoot the crap out of each other with virtual laser guns and scoring system. I wonder how good it would have been back then compared to what they've got now. They're talking about how they got sites set up in Perth, in Sydney. Yeah, I don't know if it was. Did anyone ever do the laser gun? I've never done a laser fight. I've done paintball. That hurt. I think the thrill of paintball versus laser fights is just not. There's no comparison. This is probably a bit of interest here. They've got the console review section. This was a section that I ended up taking over later on down the track, and it became my column. But this was the top 10 of different consoles, and you got the top 10 Mega Drive games. Number 1, Sonic the Hedgehog. There you go, figure. Number 2 was Super Monaco GP, or Monaco. I don't know. I always used to say Monaco, sorry. Then you just got Mickey Mouse. It's very blunt, but I think they're referring to Castle of Illusion. I think that was the only one available at that time. Then you've got John Madden Football, number 4. Number 5 was Strider. Number 6 we had Revenge of Shinobi. Number 7, Fantasy Star, spelt with an F. Fantasy Star 2. And then number 8, this is interesting, Herzog Sway. I didn't think it was a big selling game, but there it is in the top 10 of this magazine. And this would have been official numbers too. Maybe tweaked a little bit, I think, by the marketing people about with games that they wanted to push up. But I think for the most part it was pretty accurate. Then you've got Thunder Force 2. which is an awesome shooter by Tecmo. And then you got E-Spot. Not a big fan of that one. And it's saying here, upcoming Streets of Rage. And then on the Master System, you got Wonder Boy 3, Ghouls and Ghosts, Mickey Mouse, Castle Illusion again, Aerial Assault. Is that a shooter? I don't remember really playing that one much. Fantasy Zone, Super Monaco GP, R-Type, Super Tennis. That must have been a weird one for it to be in the top 8, because that's one of those cheap budget ones that was only like $30, which was a cheap game back then. $30 for a game now is alrightish, but back then that was cheap. Isn't it funny how the prices of games have gone up and down and obscured? And then you round it off with World Grand Prix. That's another budget title. I don't even know why that's on there. And number 10 is Afterburner. And they're saying that upcoming is Asterix in Egypt. I don't think that was even really a big seller. Oh, which is the next review on the next page. And then Nintendo, they actually did dedicate a little bit to Nintendo. You had so your top 10 Nintendo games for November 1991. Well, it would have been dated October at the time. Super Mario 2, number 1. Then Gremlins 2, World Wrestling, Nintendo Cup. What's that? Tennis? I'm not sure even what that is. DuckTales. That should be further up. Rad Gravity, Mega Man. Is that the first one, Mega Man? That's really aging itself there. Snake Rattle and Roll. That's a rare game, I think. If I'm not mistaken. Konami's, I think it's Track and Field 2 and Super Off-Road, and they're saying The Simpsons is going to be the one to look out for. That's pretty interesting. And then they've got an advert there for the Sega Club. And you've got Back to the Future 3 on the Mega Drive. And they gave it 86%. That was an atrocious game. I don't know. Anyone that's played it, can you tell me if that's worth 86%? I'm guessing no. Speedball 2 on the Mega Drive. I freaking love this game. In fact, I have got that. Here it is. Speedball 2 on the Mega Drive, and they've got a review here. What do you think they gave it? Only 3% more than they gave Back to the Future 2. I'm sorry, but this creams Back to the Future 3 as a game. Super addictive. Let me show you that. Thunder Force 2 review, which they gave 85%. Yeah, tough call to. I think it's not as good as Speedball 2, but it's still a really cracker of a shoot 'em up. A poster for the Rocketeer. They must have been getting some sort of a cash out to publish that. And then they got a competition for the Rocketeer. Ooh, Navy SEALs. So this is where it gets a bit weird. They started republishing overseas magazines reviews for anything that was PC or Amiga, and this in Atari. And these were the bits I used to skip because I was a console person. I'm sorry, and I still am. Simpsons versus the Space Mutants. They gave a whopping score of 78%. Ugh, totally not true. Now this is where it gets a little weird. They had a CD release and reviews. They tried to, mix it up a bit. Boys to Men. So they got a Boys to Men review. Yay. Martika's Kitchen. I can't remember her. Oh, I remember her. Okay, now I remember her title track. Bananarama and Heavy D and the Boys. Nah, they can't recall you. And then they got video reviews featuring the LA Story. I still haven't watched that. Silence of the Lambs. That really dates this. Ghost Dad, starring our old mate Bill Crosby. And the Two Jakes. Nah, can't recall. And they got an astrology section. And mine for Capricorn. You are two-faced, superficial and deceptive scum. You know who I'm talking about. Horace. Oh, my balls are fogging. Oh, my balls are fogging. See you next time, Star-Crossed Lovers CB. Right. CB, crystal balls. I get it. Okay. And then they got a cool ad here for the Sega Hotline, which I later joined shortly after this magazine got published. And we end off with a really cool ad for Terminator 2 Judgment Day for the Amiga, Atari ST, Spectrum, Amstrad and Commodore. $3.95, available at your local's newsagent now. I don't know, I was buying this at the time just simply because it was an Australian magazine. That the cover was pretty lame, and the effort that was gone into it, it was half Australian, half overseas. That was the change, and you'll see why as the issues go on. Now, I do intend to make this a regular series on my channel, looking back at the old Megazone magazines. There's not really much in the way of advertising with local shops. They will become a feature in these magazines, and I would like to just go over a few of the prices of games back then as opposed to what we are paying for the games now. And also, more importantly, for me anyway, I'll start to come across in the next issue, I think, onwards. No, is it the next one? I'm not sure. I'll have to find out. But in a couple of episodes later from here, you'll start to see magazine reviews or game reviews that I actually wrote. And I will also let you know if I stand by that review, or is it a case of what the hell was I thinking? Anyway, that's been Megazone issue 18. October, November 1991. Again, I was still in high school as this came out, just about to leave to join Sega at the time. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this little look back through Megazone magazine. I will have more of this coming up shortly. Don't forget to subscribe. If you haven't already done so, check out my Patreon page. You'll see the links down below. And don't be afraid to leave a comment. I always reply back to my comments, and I love getting those comments. I probably enjoy getting those comments more than anything else that I get as far as feedback here. And also follow me on Twitter, 2600 or 2600 Atari 2600 followers, that is. Until then, my name's been Brian, and I've been gaming since Spaceys. Thanks, guys.
Since Spaceys.